Ryan Day was talking about the focus and the goals for the 2025 season. This is him talking to Austin and Birm out at Media Days in Vegas.
It's about these guys and it's about this team. We'll talk about, what the season goals will be next week when we all, really start the full camp. But the first goal is to win the first game. And because it's such a monster game, that's where the focus is going to be. And then we'll get a lot of feedback coming off of that game. And then we grow and build and make adjustments from there as the season goes on. But the good news is there's a lot of guys in that locker room that have seen what it takes. Doesn't mean that they've done it before. They're inexperienced. They're going to have to learn from it. But, I don't think that there's one message other than it's about this team and it's about this journey this season. And we have to be able to, get guys to grow up quickly, because that's one of the things that we worked on this summer. One of our goals was grow up. We've got to get more mature fast, and then go attack this first game. And this month is going to be different than it was last year. The month of August last year, there was 3 non-conference games, but there wasn't one like this.
Yeah.
So if there was things along the way that we had to improve, it wasn't going to cost us a game.
Sure.
It can cost you a game here. It can come down to one play. So the level of attention to detail really started about a month ago, and it's ramping up to now, and we have to have a huge August.
This is what's interesting to me, Bob, this season going in for what the expectations are for this team coming off what they did last year. Because to expect Ohio State to win the national championship again seems unrealistic to me. I'm not saying they can't do it, but that can't be the expectation, can it?
I think that's always the expectation of Ohio State. I mean, that's the difference between Ohio State and Maryland, is we were just kind of documenting in the previous segment where you had a lot of other schools, you have some success, you're not expected to follow it up with the same level of success to the same degree. Whereas, Ohio State, yeah, you're breaking a new quarterback, and that's factually accurate. However, you have really 4 offensive linemen who started a lot in the playoff run returning. You've got a slew of tight ends returning. You have the best receiving core in college football and some good young running backs, and then C.J. Donaldson in there as well that you brought in transfer portal. You have all the weapons you need on offense. And defensively, while you're inexperienced, you still have a lot of guys who have played, maybe not frontline guys. You look at Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry, what they had done before. Houston and McDonald played some last year. Arvell Reese played a lot last year, in a reserve role and coming in. Jermaine Matthews had played a lot last year, and then you kind of layer that in with Sonny Styles, who's a probable All-American, Caleb Downs, who might win the Thorpe Award, and David Stigmanuson, who's a leader on the outside and play a lot of corner. You've got guys that have done a decent amount of this, so they should be in a good spot to be able to keep it rolling.
I feel like maybe it's semantics here, Bob, but I think the goal, yes, is to beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win the national championship. Those are the goals every single year. But the expectation, if you're a fan, I don't think it's fair to expect this team to win the national title again, because, and honestly, anymore now, if you go 12 and then 16, whatever the number ends up being for the playoffs, it's not always going to be the best team that wins. It'll be the team that got hottest in December and January that wins. Maybe that's the case. But I certainly feel like now this year for Ohio State, I know we're going to have Ryan Day. We're going to talk to him next week out there at practice a little bit when we're doing our show out there. But it feels to me like now the fact Ohio State's got the Natty, they won it this past season, that now I'm more focused on winning the Big Ten in Michigan than winning the national title, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, if you're focused on winning the Big Ten,
yeah,
that's one of the 2 best conferences in the country. So if that's going to be part of the calculus that you're looking at with this, then you would better think that this team's a national championship contender, because that would be putting them in a situation to get a bye. You win one more game, you're in the Final Four, then you're within striking distance. And so, when people ask about it, I go, I'd say the reasonable goal, expectation for this team is, getting in the playoff, that's should happen. You should be one of the best 3 or 4 teams in the Big Ten, and that should be a given.
Right.
Now, past that, I would say winning a game or 2, depending on where you're seated, and getting into that Final Four. After that, it's going to take some luck. It's going to take some breaks, but you should be well enough positioned to be able to get to that Final Four spot just about every season.
Ohio State, breaking news, opens up this season against Texas August 30th. Here is Ryan Day talking about if he likes the idea of playing Texas right away or rather a couple of lead-in games. Here's Ryan Day.
Now that we're into the 12-team playoffs, and I do think once we hopefully get to 16, and I think we should have 4 automatic qualifiers, I've said that, then a game like this is great because it gives you a parameter early on of like where we are. If we're not going to have those automatic qualifiers, it's a little risky, quite honestly, because in the Big Ten we have 9 conference games.
Yep.
And I think what some people don't realize is that it isn't just about that one extra game that you could win or lose. It's, let's say you're playing a team, you get that win, but down the road they play that 9th game and they get a loss in that last game. Well, now that loss, maybe that win doesn't look as good as it did before.
Right.
So you're not comparing apples to apples here. So when you throw in a 10th one like this, hey, it's going to be a monster year. We like it for the fans. We like it for our guys right out of the gate. I mean, it's going to be all attention on Columbus, which is great. But that is what it is. The schedule's been made. Now we're going to go attack it.
Bobby, I would not expect Ryan Day to ever admit this, but I would think if you had your druthers, you'd rather have Texas be the second or third game than the first game. Is that fair, or am I overthinking that?
I think, yeah, especially if you're breaking in a new quarterback,
right?
You may want that. Now, if you're going to have it the opening game, you'd much rather have it at home than on the road. So that's a huge benefit to be able to have that game in the friendly confines of Ohio Stadium. But yeah, I mean, if you can, because there are no preseason games in college football,
right?
So you dive right into the pool, man. And so there's things that, yeah, maybe you haven't shown that you have holstered that Texas isn't going to be prepared for. But also with that, you might be working out some things on the fly. They call it building the airplane while you're flying it, and that would not be a great situation.
And Bodie, you can, as a Notre Dame fan, Notre Dame, they're with Miami this year.
That's correct. Yep, down in Miami, Catholics versus the convicts, and
Part 2.
Don't feel great about it, Tito.
That's what you'd rather be second game or third game for Notre Dame, right?
Yeah, especially with the new quarterback.
Right.
Last year when we had Riley Leonard and we went down to A&M, I felt fine. I felt concerned about the offensive line. Like, I'm not saying I thought it was going to be a guaranteed win, but with C.J. Carr starting at quarterback, and obviously Ohio State's in a very similar situation, he's surrounded by a lot of talent. You feel really good about his talent alone, but he's never played. Like, he's literally never played before. So, yeah, definitely wouldn't mind a second or third game. Well, I should say definitely wouldn't mind if that game was the second or third game to have a warm-up.
That opening weekend is going to be fire because you mentioned the Notre Dame-Miami game. And then you also have Clemson-LSU, which is not do or die, but LSU hadn't won an opening game in about 6 years.
It's amazing.
And then, listen, that precedes Brian Kelly. Those aren't all on him, but they've got to find a way to get that done. And that's going to be a team with – we talk about returning quarterbacks. They've got one at South Carolina at Sellers. They've got Klubnik coming back at Clemson. You've got Aller coming back at Penn State. Nussmeier coming back at LSU. And that's kind of the list for teams with returning quarterbacks that people would say are kind of viable candidates for the CFP. And so they've got to try to figure that out. There's other schools with Ohio State, Notre Dame, Miami, like a lot of them included, where you lost some aces and veteran guys who have played a lot. Got to figure that out. Someone had asked in the chat, where was I at if they missed earlier? I'm down the place on the Ohio River down here, and it's cool. I've got this backdrop that I put together. They go, it looks like a cool place. You know why? It's because it looks like the inside of the Woody Hayes. So that's the Lombardi and the Outback or Outland trophies. They're not Outland. What is it? What are they?
Outland Award?
Buckeyes.
Award?
It's the Buckeyes. Yeah, and then the lot, and then we've got one over here with Chase Young. So I took a picture. It's amazing what they can do with these backdrops now. And that's the right outside. If you walk out of the weight room, this is the picture that you see of what's on the wall with the trophies and everything else hanging there. But it looks good, but it's just a sheet for me.
I will never accuse you of being selfish, Bob, but you look at Bodie and I, the backgrounds we have right now, and it's nothing like that. You go on the road, and you automatically have a better background than we ever have had in this studio.
I mean, I could print off another one. I mean, the sheets are only like $30, maybe not even. Like, I had to buy some stands to put it on. but I could probably print out a couple more and we could drape them around the walls in there that often.
I want a blanket.
Really amplify the ambiance.
I want a blanket
Well,
with
it's
that
a
stuff
sheet.
on it.
But why the blanket?
Because I want to just wrap myself up in Buckeye greatness. Bobby, do you feel if Quinn Ewers was back for Texas, would you be more or less confident in Ohio State's chances against Texas on August 30th?
Probably a little less. You have a guy who played and started for a couple seasons coming in. So however we slice it, we can sit here and say that Arch is going to be the greatest thing in the world. And I'm not saying that he's not. But at the end of it, he's going to make some mistakes. Now, maybe he doesn't make them in this game. Maybe he makes them later. But experience is the greatest teacher in the world. It's just a painful lesson to learn sometimes. And so do you learn those lessons in this game? Is he learning them in the next game? He's played some, but not a lot. And so he's going to miss some read. Maybe, and the question is, how bad are those mistakes and how many of them does he make? I'm convinced that the team that will ultimately win this game is the quarterback that makes the least number of the severe mistakes that cost his team, because both these rosters are pretty damn good.
One of my concerns only about I want to, and I know that. Okay, so the play calling last year against Michigan was not ideal, and I know, and I don't want Ohio State to fall into that conservative trap because they've got a young. Look, they've got to be conservative to a certain degree because I guess. It depends. No matter if it's Keen Holes or if it's Julian Sand, you're going to have a quarterback who has not thrown a ton of passes at the college level, especially in big games. And I'm curious about the play. We can talk to Ryan Day about this too, but I don't know if you have an idea on it, though. Like the conservativeness of the play calling and what that will look like for Ohio State.
Well, there's a number of factors that went in the Michigan game last year. Number one, the wind, I think, was more on the field than what people realized, which was, are limiting the ability to throw the football some. Will, I don't know if he was in the best position to be able to make some of those reads after, some of the stuff that had happened to him. He took a lot of shots during that game. So those were two of the mitigating factors. And then I think also, the history of that game, the Michigan game, the team that wins the rushing battle has always won that game. Yep. And I think there's different ways to win the rushing battle of how you're going to handle that. It doesn't mean you necessarily need to go out there and have blunt force trauma and win in the first quarter. Maybe you win in the fourth quarter after scoring some points and then being able to dominate the clock and control the game that way. And so I think, like I said, experience is a painful teacher. Ryan has learned a lot over the last 3 to 4 years with just managing things and stuff going on. And I think he learned a lot on that 4-game run as well at the end of the season. So I'm not overly worried about the play calling and it becoming, quote, too conservative or anything like that.